Welcome to the Social Media Church podcast. I'm Nils Smith, joined by two new friends that are locals here in New York City. I'm so excited for this conversation. So, Alicia and Danny, thank you so much for joining us today on the podcast.
Thank you, Nils. We're so happy to be here.
Awesome.
Yeah,
well, Faithly is, and we'll get into kind of Alicia and Danny's roles at Faithly and what Faithly is, and it's a platform that I just found out about and have been fascinated by the vision of Faithly, and we'll get into all of that. But I think what I have fallen most in love with when it comes to Faithly is the people behind Faithly, the heart behind Faithly, and the vision tied to that heartbeat. But I want to be clear: this is excellent technology that's being created for the church and the Big C Church and connecting the church. And so we're going to get into that, and I get eager to dive into the tech. But let's start with the who. And so, Alicia, I'll let you go first, and then Danny, I think your story as it ties into Alicia's is such an important part of the Faithly story. So, Alicia, starting with you, tell us a little bit about your background that led you to this point now of starting Faithly.
Thanks, Nils. So thanks, first of all, for having us. We're so thrilled to be part of the conversation. This is a really important space to be innovating in and talking about, and we're just so happy to be here. So I've lived in New York City for over 20 years. I've called New York City my home for 2 decades. I moved to New York City for my career. I started my career at Goldman Sachs, where I worked for almost all of that 20 years. So I spent some time in M&A, spent a bunch of time on the trading floor. I came to run a sales business on the equities trading floor in New York City. And I really enjoyed what I did, was pretty successful at what I was doing. But about a year and a half ago, I really felt the Lord put this vision on my heart of unity for the church and using technology to enhance that and to get there. I love the church. The Lord used the church in my life so powerfully. My husband and I have been going to a small church in Lower Manhattan called Lower Manhattan Community Church. But, you know, if you love the church, you can't just go to church. Eventually, you come to serve the church, and you might even find yourself in a leadership position. Today, I'm one of the elders at the church, and I'm on the teaching team. And it's really so important to my family and I.
I love it. And it's in Lower Manhattan, and you call it a small church, but in New York City, it's actually one of the bigger churches. And it is unique in here in the city, and it's a church that has such a strong reputation. What I always know, Alicia, of Lower Manhattan Community Church is it's the place, you know, where I actually heard about it first is my friend Josh Warren, Rick Warren's son. I guess his nephew founded the church, as one of the early pastors, and he was telling me about, like, it's this place and there's like 100 kids at this church in New York City. So it's a place with a lot of young families, and has really been such a strong church in the city. And we appreciate your leadership locally. And that's how we connected, as you connect with one of the leaders at my church, Hillsong Church. And I love how in the city, how connected the church is. And I know that's so much of your heartbeat. Mm-hmm. So Danny, talk about your background and what led you to this place of being a part of a faith-based technology startup here in New York City.
Yeah, so I thought I was going to be a pastor for the rest of my life, right? Ever since, like, I've been struggling with the call since like junior high school. Like, my youth group years were really foundational for me, because I never like had like a vision or a dream, or it was just like living life and I have no idea what I want to do. So like, I went to seminary, I was a pastor for 10 years. And then in 2018-19, I took a break. I got burnt out, and then I tried to get back into it. A lot of doors were closed, a lot of final interviews not you know, coming to fruition. And so I was like, I need to make money. And so my brother was or is a software engineer, or at the time he was at Capital One. And then he mentioned it, and I was like, huh. And I always thought like software engineering was like Hackers, the movie, where you're like like breaking into the U.S. government and stuff like that. But actually, the more I looked into it, it was just really problem solving. Right? And you're just using technology to like help people. And I was like, oh, and like my brain is really wired to like, I like puzzles, right? So like the first coding class I took in JavaScript, I was like, oh, this is a lot of fun. And it was extremely hard, don't get me wrong, but it was a lot of fun. So I was like, okay, I think I can commit myself to this. So after boot camp, we graduated in March 20th of 2020 when like New York City shut down.
Yes.
Right? Like the last day of school was shutdown day. So, but for me, like, I've been coding like 12 hours a day for 4 months to that point. So like nothing really changed for me because I was indoors. So like I was trying to like learn and grow, but like what they sell you about tech is it's not all that glamorous, especially in the beginning. And so I was like, oh man, I don't know if I want to keep doing this. And then I was at a job that I did not like. And then I saw this AngelList post, which is like a job posting for startups. And it said CTO for Faith something. And I was like, I'm not qualified, but this sounds fascinating, right? I wanted to talk to this lady. So we met, we talked, and I was like, wow, there's a lot of alignment and, you know, a lot of the things like she was explaining and wanting to do for the church. Because ultimately, even though like I went into tech, my heart was always for the church. You know, being a pastor, like I don't think I became a pastor just because like I wanted to be a pastor. If anything, like people know like I struggled really hard to shed that title and yet still like play that office, that role. So like when this opportunity came out, I was like, okay, this is my dream job. Let's go. And so like, and a year and a half later we're here and it's been great. It's literally been like I told Alicia this recently, like I need to start complaining because I'm literally living the best life I've ever had like right now, you know, from my past. So I'm just grateful for like everything God has done and how good he's been.
Yeah, I love that. And I, you know, and I've gotten a chance to talk with you guys in an extended format before this call. And I think what I took away from that time is just your heart alignment to this calling. And I think too, your heart alignment with your gift alignment of your experiences that brought you to this point of meeting a need that exists in the church. That needs technology, it needs good business sense, but it has to be missionally aligned, and I think at the core, your hearts and your experience are clearly missionally aligned. But I love how something like AngelList can connect you to a platform like this. I recently bought a company called Church Press, which is a church website company. I bought it off of I can't, you know, it was basically like a digital company, you know, acquisition website that it was a secular website. And I was like, Church Press, like that's what I do. And similar to your story, Danny, of like, you never know what doors God's going to open up on somewhere that doesn't make sense. And God connects those dots for us. So sometimes when we think, you know, I thought it was going to be this way, but God led our paths that way. And that just, the story that I continue to hear out of Faithly is God's connecting some dots here in these early days. And that's one of the things I get so excited about is documenting this moment right now in the faith life journey is I can't wait for a call a year from now, 2 years from now, when we're like, remember when, you know, we were having those initial calls. And I think this is an important documentation day for what I believe that you guys are building, that is such a significant platform for the church. So Alicia, take your backgrounds between the two of you, and where did the vision then and you know, kind of the core objective of Faithly stir up in the beginning days?
Well, Mills, I have to be honest and say for us, it's really a divine inspiration vision. I don't think either of us have. Sure, we have some of the functional expertise, like you said, to bring to the table to make something like this happen. But neither of us have ever worked at a social media company. Neither one of us have ever done anything really exactly like this. So I really think it was an idea from the Lord. And for us, it starts with the word. For us, the scripture that we are on fire for is Acts chapter 2, verse 1, where it says, on the day of Pentecost, they were all together in one place. And we thought, well, ministry leaders. It's got, like, if ministry leaders, if churches, if people serving the church, working for the church, volunteering from the church, coming together in one place, I mean, it's got to begin there. And so, sure, there are some secular reference points, I think, that have brought us to this place that we're in. Like, for example, there's a very successful company out in the secular world called Doximity that's linked in for doctors. But that's just really the beginning place for us.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it. So you feel like, at the end of the day, God put a calling on your heart of creating a connection point for ministry leaders, in a digital social space. You have even kind of the business model of Doximity, and you saw what that did, in the health, technology space. How did you begin to connect the dots of then Faithly, of how do you apply those same principles to Faithly? And then how do you even say, like, from a technology perspective, where do you begin to even start building this? Because it can feel so overwhelming. You look at a platform like LinkedIn, and they have thousands and thousands of employees and developers and engineers. And so with two people, how do you begin to build something from a vision and an idea to a tangible platform that people can interact on?
That's a great question, Nels. So we had this scripture, we had this heart that was on fire for unity and bringing ministry leaders together. We had a couple of analogs in the secular world, LinkedIn for a bigger picture analog, Doximity for, the potential in a smaller space. And then I did what I do in my ministry life, which is do what's in front of you. One step at a time, I started to do my research. Well, how many ministers are there? How many people who volunteer for the church? What does that world look like? And I started to sort of put the numbers together to see if it made business sense to sort of connect and collaborate this group of people. And I thought, well, yeah, actually, there's a lot of potential here from a business perspective. But then I wanted to get out of my own head, get out of my own vision, and test, okay, is this from the Lord? Is this what his people want? So I started to reach out to people. I cold called, I emailed, I stopped people on the street and I asked them hey, this is my idea. This is what I think the Lord has told me to think, and just started to have conversations around it. And the more I talked to people who are in and around the church world, the more I thought, we need this.
Yes.
And so then I set out to find a partner, because I knew that I did not have all the skills required to bring this to life. And so I went onto this site called AngelList that Danny referenced. It's called Well Found now, but at the time it was AngelList, and it is LinkedIn for startups.
Yeah.
So, really, again, showcasing the power of bringing together people who are of a certain mind or looking for a certain thing. And from there, Danny took the baton, at least on the technical side, and really brought those skills to the table.
I love it. Well, let's get into the technology. And Danny, when you're then approached with, can you help build this? And and you're still even beginning your development, journey and technology infrastructure, understanding. Where did you start on the technology side? And and naturally we're not the listeners are not necessarily a bunch of software developers, but I do think that we're using technology all the time, and there's always curiosity of, just like when you build a building, you got to lay the foundation first, and then you got to put in the pipes, and then you got to put in the whatever it is. I'm not a builder.
Yeah.
But how did you approach the building of the infrastructure of a platform that has such a big vision tied to it of connecting ministry leaders like you're doing now?
So I think my strength or advantage is that I'm constantly thinking or being inspired by certain sites or in my life. I'm constantly thinking about how can I redo this? For the longest time, when I was younger, I thought, because I don't have original ideas or I didn't think I was creative, that that's not for me. But what I'm really good at is taking all the Lego pieces and breaking it apart and rebuilding something new. Yes. And so Alicia was saying, my inspiration just came out of LinkedIn. I literally just copied all the designs of LinkedIn because it was the most similar starting point for us. And so just designing and whatnot. And for anyone who's technical out there, if you ever make a website, start with auth. That's the easiest way to go.
That's great.
You have a back end, front end, have people log in. And if you can do that, you're halfway home. Yeah. And then, it was a lot of designing, mocking up of what pages we wanted, what functionality we wanted. And a lot of it, I like looking back, is just like ignorance of like a false confidence from like, yeah, I'm not a boot camp. I know how to do this, this, and this.
Yep.
But then once you do it, you're like, oh wait, that's just like 10%
Yes.
of everything I need to study. So I
Yes.
mean, there were a lot of days where like, yeah, Alicia doesn't know this because I didn't tell her. I'm not gonna be like, hey, I'm struggling. You just hired me. Yeah, just figuring things out. And all I can say is for anyone who has a passion for like starting something or like creating a solution is that like just, you know, make sure you keep stoking that fire, because then you will constantly hit walls and like closed doors. But even like me being feeling inadequate to be a CTO, like I could have easily said no, but the fact that I said yes, like God uses that yes. So it's in a long way to answer your question is it's helpful to know where other people have started, and then try that out first, and then figure out, okay, once I get momentum, now where do I need to go? And like, not because I'm not like a very like superstitious person or mystical person, but like a lot of the times it just kind of comes to me, and so like I can't take credit every time Elise says, "Oh, this is amazing." I'm like, it's just in the moment. I'm like, oh, this feels good. This sounds good. And I'm just trusting like the Spirit's leading me. Yeah.
Well, and I'm one of those Holy Spirit guys too, that believes that there's times where I think when we sometimes don't have all of the answers and we lean into the Spirit to guide us. But I think there's also times where it's like we don't just, you know, wait till the Spirit leads us. Sometimes we just use our minds and apply it. And I think, Danny, there's so much gold that you just shared that I think ministry leaders can take away. I think one thing that I think about is the side of creative, where sometimes ministry leaders obsess over doing something that nobody has ever done. And sometimes, most of the time, when you do something no one has ever done, it's really a combination of what a number of people have done. You're just integrating different ideas. And Alicia, you were talking about that of like, look, I saw Doximity, or we look at LinkedIn and we use that for inspiration. We're going to not do it identically to that, but we're going to take inspiration from that. I watched the founder of DoorDash recently in an interview talk about, he basically looked at Uber, you know, and just said, hey, we can apply this to deliveries. And it's not rocket science sometimes. Now, it is a heavy lift. It's not easy, but you can we're all creative in nature, but so much of our creativity comes from learning and watching others. The other thing, Danny, that you shared that I'm going to really, and I think ministry leaders need to listen to, is you didn't know exactly the path to do this and to build this. And you didn't have a clearly defined roadmap. You just started. And as you hit new roadblocks, you figured them out. And I think the number of ministry leaders that wait until they have all the answers to do something, they end up getting left behind. And I think we live in a day where you guys could have gone down a path of like, we're going to have the full engineering roadmap and plan and 5-year strategy clearly documented and defined,
and then
started, and you would have never started if you did that, you know. And I think at the end of the day, this is today. This is the world we live in. We cannot wait till we have all the answers to start. And I think there's just some leadership gold in what you just shared and the path you've taken. And the truth is, Faithly isn't going to be perfect. And there, Mark Zuckerberg, and I remember going, and they've actually taken these signs down at Facebook's offices, but I remember going to their offices early days, probably 10 years ago now, and they had done is better than perfect on the wall. And they would often say, like we work hard and break things. Is it, Facebook, Meta doesn't have everything figured out. Google doesn't do everything perfect. And I think too, sometimes you just have to start, and sometimes you have to find where's it broken and then resolve those things, or where's an opportunity and build those things. But you've built, Danny, I got to tell you, as I've played with it, a pretty impressive platform and technology infrastructure that is a great user experience. And so I think you're heading down a really exciting path. Scott Beck, just one last tangent here as I'm processing this, but Scott Beck from Glue recently shared in an interview that I sat in on when he was here in New York, that the secret to his success when he was scaling Blockbuster and scaling Boston Market was infrastructure, and it was essentially engineering. And so when they had companies that were built on solid infrastructure, it allowed for economies of scale. for those businesses. And when they didn't, and that required financial infrastructure, that required technology infrastructure, that required literally in those situations with Blockbuster, physical, infrastructure, how they moved movies and how they shipped them to different stores. And so you have to have good infrastructure. And I think that's Faithly, from my perspective, has a great infrastructure of vision and direction, and now also technology infrastructure that you're building on. So let's talk about what Faithly is today. And Alicia, maybe I'll let you speak to, as users get into Faithly, what is it that you want them to do today? And then we'll get into where you want it to go in the future. But today, if a user goes to faithly.com, what is it that they can do on the platform?
Well, the first thing they can do, and this is why LinkedIn is a great starting place as an analogy for us, the first thing they can do is to create and present their ministry identity. Because LinkedIn was the first successful social platform to say, hey, we want you to bring like this part of your identity, not like your whole identity or, pieces of it, but like just this one part. And that's what we're hoping people bring to start. And there's not a place to do that today on the internet. Once there's a place for you to express your authentic ministry identity, and that can be for someone who is on staff at a church, it can be for someone who's on the welcome team at Hillsong, right? Like if you're serving the church, you have a ministry identity. But from there, I think the opportunities that we want to provide for people include connection with other people who have a ministry identity, right? Collaboration. We have, more practically speaking, we have a job board where folks can post jobs or search for jobs. A lot of those jobs today are church jobs, but I think in the future that'll grow. We have a new feature that we're piloting right now called Faithfully Groups, where, taking a step back, I will say over the last year, one of the things that we've learned as we've spoken to folks all over different areas of ministry is people want to be in community, right? And that's, one of the key reasons why we've created Faithfully. But what we learned over the past year is that everyone who's in ministry also wants to create community, sometimes for affinity, like maybe I want to gather other women ministry leaders. Oftentimes it's for a purpose, like, for organizing a welcome team, to use that example again, or to organize a VBS. But that's a practical tool that we want to put into ministry leaders' hands to allow them to create the communities that they need to encourage and equip or to get something done in a ministry context. So those are some of the tools and features that folks can encounter on our site today. Danny and I have big dreams for the things that people could use Faithfully for down the road. But it starts with that ministry identity. It starts with creating that profile and connecting and collaborating from there.
Yeah, I love that.
As pastors and church leaders, you know the power of prayer. But today's busy world, it's not always easy to keep your congregations connected and supported. That's where our friends at God Listens Digital Prayer Wall come in. At God Listens, they can help you create a space where the lonely can find comfort, the seeker can discover truth, and believers can grow in their faith. 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. Imagine a place where prayer requests are shared in real time, where your spiritual milestones and journeys are shared and celebrated, and where your congregation feels connected and supported no matter where they are. Don't let the barriers of time and distance limit your ministry. Text WALL to 67101 to learn more about how God listens and can transform your prayer life. With God Listens, you can expand your church's reach beyond the four walls of your building, creating a digital prayer community that's always available.
And a couple of things here. One, I would say as a listener, just go to faithly.com and set up your profile. Just like, and I think we do this whenever even platforms come out, and I'm trying to think of some of the latest ones that didn't necessarily even work out. But I would always tell ministry leaders, whenever a new platform comes around, go and set up an account and and fill out your profile. And then if it catches on, then you've got it. If it doesn't, then you don't. And I state that this isn't going away. But at the end of the day, it doesn't hurt you. It'll take you 5 minutes to go and set up your profile. And so it's a really easy place to start. And the other thing I want to share is that we at Social Media Church have already created a group in Faithly, and so go and join our group, and that's going to be our primary place for community to interact with each other. And so we'll leave a link in the show notes at socialmedia.church to our group, but you can literally just, when you go into the platform, it's a good way to even learn the Faithly platform. You can search groups and find our group listed there in their list of groups. So make sure you go and join that group, and let's interact and learn how this platform works. I found it to be, very similar to Facebook groups or LinkedIn groups if you've used any of these platforms. I do want to speak to a question that maybe others will have, and that I anticipate hearing is, do we need another social media platform, and do we need another place to set up an account on? And I believe that the answer is yes. This is why I got so excited about this conversational platform, is because I have experienced it in different aspects of, especially in these niche or niche, however you want to say it, platforms and social networks. Is we have these mass platforms like Instagram and X and Facebook that kind of serve I think a mass audience. But then we also have other platforms. And for me, I'm a sports guy, so I use Bleacher Report to interact socially around with other, Houston Astros fans. And then I use Nextdoor to connect with my neighbors. And then I use LinkedIn to connect professionally. And then, and I think we end up having these niche social networks that we often don't even remember that we're in, or realize that it's a part of how we're interacting. And so I think that we do need a place for ministry leader, at least most of us, where we can interact in a unique way around kind of this unique similarity that we have in common of being involved in ministry, in ministry leadership in one way or another. And then where I can't wait to see is, where does it go from here? Danny, as you're the builder of this technology, what do you hope people will do with the platform as it is right now? So as they go in, are there any features that you want to make sure you do this, or make sure you use this function or feature when you're setting up your profile or creating a group?
Honestly, my hope is that people will connect, because like a big pain point was for me in ministry was trying to just figure out, like, okay, I need to figure this out, but I don't even know where to start. Like, again, when I built like Faithly, at least I had other platforms to kind of take inspiration from. But when you're like a children's pastor and you're just like part-time and you just got thrown into this because you love kids and you're just like, okay, I don't know what to do. Right? Yeah. Then you just kind of remember, okay, what did we do when we were kids? Like, that was the whole point. And like our current tagline is like, don't do ministry alone. But it's not just ministry. It's also just like, where should I go to church? I'm like new in the city. Like, connecting with other Christians, I think, is such a valuable thing, because like a Christian relationship it's very unique. Do you know what I mean? Because we can have literally nothing in common, and the fact that we both have Jesus, like faith in Jesus, is just mind-boggling, that come from different worlds. And then you can like actually just love and serve me just because of that fact alone. So that's my hope. My hope is people come on, they fully express themselves authentically on their profiles. And if you're like, hey, I want this, this, and this, then hit me up, right?
Yes.
Like, right. I think the beauty of being on the ground floor of a new thing is that you have direct access to the people who are building it and doing it. Yes. And so like, because this platform will evolve, and like to kind of piggybacking off of our other conversation about just starting, the reason why you want to just start is because whatever you started with is not what you're going to end up with.
Yes.
Right? It literally is like raising a child. Like, you think their personality is one way, and then they go another way, and then something happens, and you're just like, okay, I guess I'm just going to like make sure this doesn't die, but like just safely, make it grow. So that's my hope. My hope is not people see this as just another platform. Just I hope people come in using their imagination, knowing that, one, we are Christians and we love the church. And when we say church, we don't mean like an institution. We mean people, who are connected in faith and who want to grow in faith and who like might not be like thriving. I know a lot of thing is just people are just trying to survive, and
Yes.
like that's no way to do faith. I think I've been doing faith like that for 40 years, and then finally this year, I don't know, God kind of just opened up my mind to just so many different possibilities, imaginations, and it's been so like rewarding because now I get to explore. Where before, like my faith was in a box of like, oh, don't go here, don't go there. But now it's like, oh no, I'm safe in His hands. So even if I go explore, I don't have to stay there. I can come back.
Yes.
And when I started to do that, like one, I started hearing amazing stories of what God is doing in other people's lives. Two, I've gained so much perspective that I didn't have in my own bubble, and like it inspires me to be like, I want to find out more of these God stories. And so hopefully Faithly will be a platform where like the exchange of that will happen, because like anytime, I hear or I share, like you see the excitement in people's eyes, like, what, you too?
Yes.
Like, oh, that's crazy. Yeah.
Yes.
So that's my hope.
It's I love that. I mean, I think that excitement of you get to be one of the first that and you're going to get to see this evolve, and I think there's so much to that opportunity, and I really want to challenge those that are listening. Don't just go. I think I said go and set up your profile. Don't just go and set up your profile. Go to the next level, and don't just even join a group. Maybe you need to go start a group. And so I can't wait to see. And I'm reminded of when I was 22 years old, and I started as a youth pastor in San Antonio, Texas. Steve Teal who was a youth pastor at another church, invited me to his church and at a lunch with about 20 other youth pastors. And I remember like getting to that lunch, I'm like, these are my people. And these people I felt so isolated in ministry. And this is like first 6 months in youth ministry. And in 6 months, I felt very isolated. And many go years and years feeling very isolated, and nobody understands my frustrations. Nobody, it understands what it's like to be in ministry. But when I was at that lunch, and then every month they would have a lunch every other month, and it was just so encouraging to me as a ministry leader to talk shop, to brainstorm games, to say, what books are you reading? What ideas do you have? What's working? What's not working? And to connect with other youth pastors. So if you're a youth pastor and you're listening to this, go start a youth pastor group inside of Faithly. If you're children's pastors, go and share ideas and encourage each other, pray for each other. And if there's not already a group that I think fits the kind of people you want to connect with, start it. And I think you'll be surprised who else joins that. And then you get to lead that group and lead that conversation. And I think there's just so many unique opportunities with being first. And it doesn't mean you have to control it. And it doesn't, just like this podcast, DJ Chuang started this podcast as a way to have conversations with church leaders. And then he was like, you know what, I have other conversations I want to go lead. Nils, will you take the keys and run with this? And he passed on that. And so, you know what, go jump into Faithly, connect with other leaders, and start conversations and be a part of the beginnings of this platform being birthed. I realize that it probably sounds like this is a sponsorship, or that I'm just really excited about this. These are my new friends, Alicia, Danny, and I heard their vision, and I'm like, I caught it. And I was like, you got to get on the podcast, and we've got to talk about this because I just think this is meeting a very specific need. And I'm just fired up about it. And I want to be one of the lead users of it. And I want at the end of the day, what's going to make this successful is if ministry leaders will jump on and use the platform to connect with each other. That's where success will happen. And it's not going to happen if you don't log in, and it's not going to happen if you don't start conversations. So I want to enable them to build the technology so that we can more effectively use it. And so that's my objective here. Just I want to be clear that not a sponsored podcast in any way. This is I'm just fired up about this, and I hope that if you're listening to this, that you are going to get not just excited about going and setting up an account, but excited to really pour into this platform as an engaged user in the platform. Now let's talk about the future and where this is going. Alicia, I know you probably have some other thoughts you want to share, but I want to hear, where's this going to?
Well, so the future, I think one of the things that makes the future so exciting for a platform like Faithly is that in the ministry world, the line between who's a minister and who's not, I mean, that line is so blurred, right? Like, in the beginning when I talked about my own path with the church and my own journey, I started out as someone whose life just needed to be saved, right? I just needed to go to church. And today I'm part of the leadership team of the church.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the beauties of the Christian walk, and also one of the sort of potential future paths for Faithfully is just this opportunity to, start with ministry, but really to serve the broader universe of Christians that are out there. What does that path look like? How do we get there? Danny and I have some ideas, but we're not exactly sure. There is this pastor in Long Island City who I have a ton of respect for, and I love his catchphrase, which is that he intends to fail forward all the time. That's what Danny and I have been doing, and that's what we will keep doing. We're going to try things, and when they don't work, we're going to sort of shift a little bit to the right and say, hey, is this the opportunity the Lord has for me? I will say that one of the things that I learned from Goldman Sachs is hustle. Now that word hustle is so loaded, with hustle culture and everything, but I just mean like parable of the talents. If there is something in front of me, I'm going to act like it is a letter addressed to me from the Lord, and it is an opportunity. I'm going to go after it with everything that I have until he shows me that it's not. That's how Danny and I are doing Faithfully.
I love it. It's
there are a couple of things I want to jump in with.
Okay.
If you don't mind, you can see it on my face. I know.
Yeah.
The first is, Nils, you were so persuasive that I know that all of your listeners are right now going, how do I get on there and how do I get involved? The URL is actually faithfully, faithly.co, not .com.
Oh, I said .com. Good catch.
You
Good
did.
catch.
We think the M stands for money. It was just too expensive for it. So it's faithfully.co. That's where folks can find us. I wanted to make sure I jump in with that. And the other thing too is, you had asked this question that Danny and I asked ourselves at the outset that we still ask ourselves sometimes, which is, gosh, there are so many things on offer right now in the digital world, and the internet is so saturated. Do we need something else? Of course, for us, the answer is an emphatic yes. But we've thought this through, and we've looked at the different platforms, and we have felt that for ministry purposes, you're really shoehorning yourself into a secular platform that wasn't created for a ministry purpose. Like, for example, if you're on Facebook trying to start a group, trying to get something going, well, you're bringing 20 years of Facebook history with you. You're bringing all the pictures of your nieces and nephews, all the videos of your kids' birthday parties. Like, is that the starting point where you want to get something done in the ministry world? It's a little awkward, right? And there are lots of other reasons why the other platforms don't quite fit either. But that's actually not the most important thing, because we can shoehorn all day long. We can appropriate technology, and we've been doing it for years. But the key for us is that everyone is using something different. There are pastors here who are using Discord. There are pastors here who are using Slack, and there are volunteers here who are using Facebook, and none of those things are touching or talking. We want to bring it together into one place.
I love that. I love that. And I can't wait to see how that develops specifically, because I do think that I think there's a number of just things that, I think that you guys sold me and hearing your hearts around it more than anything. But I think as I look at the technology gap and I think about so many of the ministers that I've worked with if you recommend, it's funny, with one church I was working with, they were trying to just figure out, where do we get our volunteers gathered? And we're like, well, if we say we're in a Facebook group, we're basically telling half of them that we're irrelevant because they don't want to be on Facebook, the younger generation. But LinkedIn doesn't fit, and Slack feels too work-like, and Discord feels too geeky. And so I do think that this group's feature, for when I think about just even the product that you're developing, is going to meet a very tangible need within your leadership teams and volunteer teams in your church. And so I think beyond just connecting with other pastors, ministry leaders, even internally, I think this is a very tangible tool for your ministries. And so I love that, Alicia. Danny, I'm curious from you on the tech side, are there any things that you're excited to even build out? And I don't know if you can share or not, as roadmaps can be so vague sometimes, but anything that you get excited about when it comes to the future of this platform and what you dream about building here?
So I'm not like a technologist or like a futurist. I mean, I love sci-fi, and obviously I have ideas of what, but it really comes down to what are the needs of the people.
Yeah.
You know, just broad strokes. Like AI has, like I told you, it's a must in the coming
Yes.
future. Like
Yeah.
I think any platform without AI is like doomed
Yes.
to fail because no one will want it, right? So
Yep.
that's there. But like something that I've been like, or maybe God's kind of like helping me work through, is this idea that technology should just make us more human, right?
Hmm.
Like technology should be serving humans, and we shouldn't be enslaved to technology where like, oh, if we don't have the tech, we can't do the thing. It's
Yep.
like, no, we can still do it. It'll be a little more difficult.
Yes.
But so yeah, like, and because like we're still trying to like figure out what is the best use case right now for the people. I'm not thinking that far ahead
Yep.
to build something. So I
Yes.
am really excited for feedback because I love building out feedback. You know, I'm
Yes.
like dying for feedback. Like if someone said like, I hate this button color, like, yes,
Yes.
thank you. I will change it. What color do you like? And I'll
Yeah.
give you a palette, you know? Like I want to be in a place where we're actually serving the needs of the people rather than trying to get people conform to like using our site the way we think. Because again, we made it for people who are like
Yeah.
struggling and in trouble. So yeah, that's like my long. What I'm not looking forward to, and I've told Alicia this many times, is building out the mobile version. Because
Yep.
like for those of you who do software, they like a web. A web app is completely different
Yes.
than a mobile app. And then
Yes.
there's the whole iOS. So I told her, like, once we get big funding and a team, we can do mobile.
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
yeah.
Danny's
Yeah.
really excited to manage the people who will build mobile.
Yes, it is. Having worked in some tech startups, I understood that pain point, and honestly, it has more to do probably with Apple and so many of the restrictions they put on their mobile apps. But obviously, mobile will have to be a part of the future. My one feature request, and I think I've shared this with you guys as I look at the platform. And what doesn't even yet exist on LinkedIn, and I'm surprised it doesn't, is video confercerncing. I think as we look at how to best connect in a digital manner, I think even just right now, us being face to face via video is a great asset in connecting. And so that's my one future feature request to put on the roadmap. And I know
I will
that
put
could
it on
be
the
years
roadmap.
away. But I think that as you build out that list of dream functions and features, that's my one recommendation for the future. But I can't wait to see what you build and where it goes. Alicia, you got some thoughts?
I do. So Danny, let's make a note. When we build that feature, we'll call it the Nils Smith.
Ooh.
And anytime you want to do a video conference, people will just say, like, that's Nils, okay?
Okay. I like
Okay.
that. I like that. And if Kenny Jang ever request, or Jay Cranda, any feature request, if you could just deny those immediately, and
Gotcha.
I'll come up with a new name idea outside of that. I just want to put that plug in. You can DJ Chuang, I'll accept feature request in his name, but Jay and Kenny are not allowed to have names here in Faithly. So I say that, who knows what the future holds, but I will take that as a great compliment. And I look forward to being, just a very engaged user. And I love technology, innovation, and opportunities, and in speaking into where that goes. And I love Danny not having to be the person in charge of figuring out how to develop the mobile app version of it. I just love recommending it and letting smart people like you figure out how that works with your team as you build out that team. Guys, I'm so excited about what you're building. I can't wait to see how pastors and ministry leaders and ministry volunteers and all the users that get drawn to the platform, how they use it and where it goes. But I believe it's going to be such a gift to the Big C Church, and both here in America and beyond, as people begin to adopt the platform and integrate it into their ministry systems and into just their ministry life, and what that will mean for their ministry. So I'm grateful for the two of you and the faithfulness that you have to do the hard work of building a startup and funding a startup and making this happen, to take a vision to reality and continue to dig in the dirt and these beginning days, and so I can't wait for the days to come. But I'm excited about where we are today with this platform and what it is that ministry leaders can use and do with it today, and so I'm grateful for that. Any final thoughts that either one of you want to share with our listeners before we wrap up this conversation?
Go ahead.
It's all you, Danny.
No, I just want to know, like, if you do make a profile and you've come from the podcast, just make a note somewhere or join the group. I really want to connect with you guys. And like Nils inspired us to start our own podcast. Or I mean, I brought it up, but like he was like the final push, right? I'm like, oh, you the one. So this is like a.
It's now been stated on the podcast, so it's got to happen. So I'm going to just say, we'll make another announcement here on the podcast once that podcast does launch in the not too distant future. And so
we have to see how it was done first, Nils.
Yeah. Okay. We wanted to see how the pros do it, and then follow the lead. But yeah, I really want to just again connect with people. Because community at the end of the day is just connections of people, right?
Yes.
And then just share ideas. So yeah, I really want to see like how people are using it and how it can be helpful to them. And like I have a profile, so you can direct message me, and
there you go.
I'll go right to me.
And we'll put a link directly to Danny's and Alicia's Faithly profiles in the show notes at socialmedia.church. And we'll put them in the Social Media Church Faithly group as well. And so connect directly with the people that are building this. That's so cool as an opportunity. Alicia, final thoughts from you?
Well, I'll just echo what Danny said. We built this for community, and that includes for ourselves too. We've met a lot of new folks and made a lot of new friends and added to our sort of ministry life as a result of this platform. And so get on there, message us. We couldn't be more excited to get to know people and to continue the conversation.
I love it. Well, that's a great next step for everyone listening.
As a pastor and church leaders, you know the power of prayer. But today's busy world, it's not always easy to keep up with your congregations, connected and supported. That's where our friends at God Listens Digital Prayer Wall come in. And God does listen. They can keep and help create a space where the lonely can find comfort, the seeker can discover truth, and the believer can grow in their faith. 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. Imagine a place where prayer requests are shared in real time, where your spiritual milestones and journeys are shared and celebrated, and where your congregation can feel connected and supported no matter where they are. Don't let the barriers of time and distance limit your ministry. Text WALL to 67101 to learn more about how God listens and can transform your church prayer life. With God Listens, you can expand your church's reach beyond the four walls of your building, creating a digital prayer community that's always available.
Alicia and Dana, thank you so much for joining us. Thanks everyone for listening. If you would, beyond just going and signing up for a Faithly account and getting set up there, leave a review on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, wherever it is that you're listening. That would mean the world to us. We read every single review. We listen to them and we take the feedback and we apply it to the podcast. So anything you want to share with us, do that in the reviews and it helps others find this podcast as well. So we appreciate that. Appreciate you listening, and we will talk to you again on the next episode.